that not only can win the May 16th primary, but can also retire Andy Beshear in November.
I'm going to introduce a third new sport into the Southeastern Conference. It's called the economy.
You run like it's up to you, you pray like it's up to God, and you just run hard.
And I'm the rural candidate in this race, and I feel like I've got the best chance of winning.
They feel left behind. That's not going to be the case for me if I'm governor.
We need to make Kentucky great again. Let's do it together.
Good evening from election headquarters. I'm Steve Hensley. It has been a busy day here in the mountains with tornado warnings and a primary election. We have a lot to discuss, so let's jump right in. We now know who will face off in the governor's race in November. Daniel Cameron clinched the Republican nomination in convincing fashion with more than 45% of the vote in a very crowded field. Governor Andy Beshear easily won the Democratic nomination. No surprise there. He defeated two challengers with more than 90% of the vote. So now that we know who came out on top, let's take a quick look at how the other candidates stacked up. Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles came in second in the Republican race for governor. Former UN Ambassador Kelly Craft was third, and Eric Dieters of Northern Kentucky, who said he was the anti-Mitch McConnell candidate, came in fourth. Auditor Mike Harmon and Somerset Mayor Alan Keck battled all night for fifth place. They were followed by lesser-known candidates David Cooper, Jacob Clark, Robbie Smith, Bob DeVore, Johnny Rice, and Dennis Ormerod. On the Democratic side, perennial candidate Jeffrey Young came in second, and Pepe Martin, who ran as a Republican for governor in 1999 and lost to Paul Patton, was third. While some candidates are celebrating their victories at the ballot boxes today, others are reflecting on the races they ran and what went wrong. Here's a look at where the candidates and our reporters are tonight. Republican gubernatorial candidate Daniel Cameron celebrated in Louisville. Kelly Craft watched the results come in from Lexington. Also in Lexington is Ag Commissioner Ryan Quarles. Alan Keck, the only Republican gubernatorial candidate from Southern Kentucky, stayed in his hometown of Somerset. And incumbent Governor Andy Beshear was in Frankfort. So the fall governor's race is now set. Governor Andy Beshear will face off against Attorney General Daniel Cameron. It's the second straight time an incumbent governor will face the sitting Attorney General. WYMT's Phil Pendleton was with the Beshear campaign in Frankfort and has more from the state's History Center.
There was not a lot of question that Andy Beshear would be the Democratic nominee for Kentucky governor this year, but tonight it was official. Andy Beshear's father, Steve Beshear, was on the podium earlier tonight, stating that this is going to be a fight heading into the November race.
This battle starts tonight and will go every day between now and November 7th.
Steve Beshear was elected to 2 terms, and now Andy wants to make it like father, like son. Beshear took the podium as chants of 4 more years filled the loud room at the Kentucky History Center.
In every corner of our Commonwealth, what I see is hope and optimism, a belief in a brighter future, and the commitment to get the job done.
Beshear wants another term after facing a historic pandemic and 2 major natural disasters on both ends of the state. But he says the job is about getting results for the people of Kentucky.
So we got a good story, and we need to tell it. Kentucky was ranked number 2 in the country in per capita economic development last year. We're building the biggest battery plant on planet Earth. We have the lowest unemployment rate in our history.
Governor Beshear is obviously taking a lot of credit for a lot of the accomplishments that have happened over the past 3.5 years, such as job creation and economic development. And I asked him about that, saying that the Republicans would take credit for that as well. He says there's enough good things happening for everyone to take some credit. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
Well, as expected, turnout was low on this election day, just more than 13% according to the Secretary of State's website. But the headline of the night might be just how strong Attorney General Daniel Cameron looked in this Republican primary for governor. Kelsey Soto was following Cameron's campaign all day and has reaction from him from Louisville.
History made here tonight in downtown Louisville as Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who was first voted into that seat in 2019, the first Republican to do so in more than 70 years, has now made history again tonight as the first African-American Republican nominee for governor. We have heard from his supporters who say this is an exciting time. Senator Donald Douglas, who was the first black state senator, says it gives him hope for the future. We've seen from Daniel Cameron this evening, who's been quoted in years past saying that he was focused on being Attorney General and that was his priority whenever those comments and mentions of the long-running joke that AG stands for aspiring governor were brought up, but he has now set his sights on the governor's mansion. He spent most of his acceptance speech focusing on his new opponent in the fall, discussing why Andy Beshear doesn't deserve a second term. Cameron did thank former President Donald Trump for his endorsement and spent time thanking his family and campaign team for their work, dedication, and commitment. He has quickly become a rising star in the GOP, including a prominent speech in the 2020 RNC in a race that will carry some significant national weight and implications. Cameron now focusing on his next campaign in the race to the November general election.
You and I together, we proved that no obstacle is too great. No barrier is too large when concerned and committed Kentuckians come together around a common purpose and vision rooted in ideals that have propelled this nation forward since its very beginning.
Now, if Cameron walks away victorious in November, he would become the first African-American Republican governor to be elected in United States history. So there will be plenty of eyes on this race. And we've also heard from his supporters tonight that they are so grateful for his cool, calm, level-headed nature, and they are looking forward to what he brings to the table in the fall. In Louisville, Kelsey Soto, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Kelsey, thank you. It was certainly a disappointing showing for former UN Ambassador Kelly Craft tonight. She spent around $10 million, largely self-funded, and was the third-place finisher. Garrett Weimer has reaction from her.
In her concession speech, Kelly Craft called for unity to defeat Andy Beshear in November, but her speech did not mention Daniel Cameron by name or congratulate him on winning the party's nomination. As the polls closed and the numbers began to come in, Kelly Craft went around the room to greet the volunteers who put so much time into the campaign.
I have 2 words to say before I say anything else tonight.
When it became clear it wouldn't be enough,
if I could put those 2 words in bright lights, in big letters, I would.
Craft made sure to thank them.
But as they come from my heart, they are bright and they are big with my deepest sincerity. They are thank you. Thank you. And thank you, and thank you again.
She did talk about the tenor of the primary race, which saw her and Cameron trade barbs in TV ads and on one debate stage.
I knew we would be attacked by Democrats, but I never in a million years thought that the attack would come from my opponents, to my family.
Still, she said this has been the highlight of her life's love for Kentucky, and her gratitude outweighs any disappointment.
And within the families in Kentucky, I know where God is. Amen. I met him at your table. Amen. We met him together, and he shined on us together.
It's unclear what's next for Craft. She did say here that their movement, their revival, as she called it, has just begun. With the Craft campaign in Lexington, Garrett Weimer, WKYT.
Garrett, thank you. State Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles had a strong showing tonight, coming in second place after Daniel Cameron. He ran a grassroots campaign, and one of his main priorities was visiting all 120 counties in the state. Mariah Congedo was at his campaign today and says he was positive about the future despite the loss.
A crowd of more than 100 people filled the room here at the Embassy Suites in Lexington, showing support for Ryan Quarles despite his loss tonight. He took to the podium sharing a relatively short but positive speech to his supporters, telling them it's okay, we had fun. And he shook all of their hands before he left and gave us a few minutes of his time.
This was a classic example about what wins elections in modern age. I went the grassroots route. I'm very proud of that. We knew we were going to be underfunded from the beginning. We didn't have the biggest budget in this race, but that's okay. I think that each of the top candidates had their own strengths and weaknesses, and I'm just proud we had a strong showing tonight.
Quarles has credited his campaign with staying clean and positive throughout. He says he thinks this did help him remain a top candidate.
I wanted to help set the example of not only how this primary, but future primaries should be conducted, especially as the Republican Party continues to grow.
He says he spoke to both Daniel Cameron and Kelly Craft earlier in the day to congratulate each other.
I wish Daniel the best of luck, and Ambassador Craft and I are personal friends, and we both reflected on traveling around Kentucky and getting to meet Kentuckians.
As for what's next for Quarles,
I don't know. I'm going to say a prayer tonight. I have a great support team around me.
Quarles says he's supportive of the ticket this fall and is humbled by all of the support he was shown throughout his campaign tour. Reporting at the Brian Quarles Watch Party, Mariah Congito.
Mariah, thank you. The only candidate for governor from Southern Kentucky, Alan Keck, fell short during today's primary. He came in 6th place, closely behind State Auditor Mike Harmon. WYMT's Olivia Calfee has more on the mayor of Somerset's reaction to the results.
Somerset Mayor Alan Keck spent the evening at his house with his friends and family. He says this is a tradition that started in his campaigns for mayor. However, a few hours after the polls closed, Keck addressed those at his event with his family by his side, thanking each of them for their support through his campaigning process, and says despite not winning the primary election, he still plans to continue helping move Kentucky forward.
I'm not done talking about ways we can move our city, our state, our country forward. I believe the absolute best days in America are still to come, and I think the best way to get there is state by state. It's how our country was built. It's how we'll be restored. So I hope you'll join me on that. I hope you'll continue to stand by my side.
And he mentioned that he got the chance to call Daniel Cameron after he conceded, saying he will do what he can to help Cameron in the coming months. And he is ready to continue his role as mayor. He says he's looking forward to walking through the doors of City Hall on Wednesday morning to continue serving the people of Somerset. In Somerset, Olivia Calfee, now back to you.
Well, Olivia, thank you. And before the polls closed, it was a different kind of flurried activity all throughout the region and certainly within the halls of WYMT as we tracked several rounds of severe weather moving through the region. Many severe thunderstorm warnings and even a few tornado warnings out there this afternoon. And they have produced quite a bit of kind of damage behind. Not so much damage. We've seen a little bit of damage out of Pennington Gap, Virginia. I know some folks with the Weather Service are going to be surveying areas all throughout the region tomorrow. But one of the things we've seen a lot of tonight, the hail. This was a report of 2.5-inch size hail. That's the size of tennis balls out of Raccoon Creek there into portions of Pike County. Into portions, we had a few more, nearly 2-inch size hail out of Feisty into portions of Knott County and nearly an inch out of Wootton. We had several hail reports. Overall, we had about 40 reports or so, and a lot of them wind damage into portions of Pulaski County. And again, as you head into Southwest Virginia, which appears particularly hard hit. Pinpoint Doppler's a clean sweep out there. Our severe weather risk is done for the night. It's kind of a cool, muggy night, if that makes sense. Low to mid-60s out there. Your forecast first as we head through the next 12 hours. Temperatures still fall into those mid-50s tonight. I think we've got some fog on the way for the morning. And as we head through your breakfast forecast in the morning, much quieter with those temperatures, middle and upper 50s. Steve, I'll have the latest on a much nicer day on Wednesday in a few minutes.
Well, we'll definitely remember this election day for the weather as much as the politics. Thank you very much. Well, let's run through quickly some of the results from the down-ballot statewide races tonight. In the Republican primary for Agriculture Commissioner, Jonathan Schell defeated Richard Heath in one of the closest races of the evening. Both of these candidates ran television ads. Schell is a former state representative from Lancaster. He will face Democrat Sierra Enlow of LaRue County in the fall, who defeated Michael Malone. For Secretary of State, incumbent Michael Adams easily won his primary over two challengers, Stephen Nipper and Alan Markle. Adams will face State Representative Buddy Wheatley in November. For Auditor of Public Accounts, Floyd County native Allison Ball wins over Derek Petties. We'll have more on that race in just a moment. Finally, for State Treasurer, Mark Metcalf of Garrett County, who's been elected Garrett County Attorney several times, wins about 50% of the vote over two challengers, including O.C. Oleka, who current Treasurer Allison Ball endorsed. Metcalf will face Democrat Michael Bowman of Louisville in November. Well, an Eastern Kentucky native has earned the Republican nomination for state auditor. WYMT's Keaton Hall joins us now with more on that race. Keaton?
That's right. The race for state auditor, like many this election day, was called quickly. Allison Ball, the current state treasurer, has won the Republican nomination for state auditor. Ball defeated Derek Peeties with more than 70% of the vote. A Floyd County native, Ball has been Kentucky state treasurer since 2016, serving 2 consecutive terms. I was able to speak with Ball briefly this evening about her win.
I am honored to be the Republican nominee for state auditor. I've served now as state treasurer. I'm just finishing up my 2nd term, and it's been a privilege to serve the people of Kentucky. And I'm excited about a good campaign for the rest of this season to present my ideas and my vision to the people of Kentucky. I'm a proud Eastern Kentuckian. My family has been in Floyd County since the 9th generation, so since the 1790s. I'm deeply rooted in those mountains. Lots of family in that whole area. So I'm excited to be from Eastern Kentucky and for the rest of the state to see, what we're like.
Ball will now shift her focus to the general election, which will be November 7th, hoping to fill the seat left by Mike Harmon. In studio, Keaton Hall, WYMT Mountain News. Back to you.
Keaton, thank you. Allison Ball will now be facing off against Democrat Kimberly Reeder. We'll be right back.
Summer's here, and with a new Toyota, you can go out and have s'more fun. Whoa, whoa. Yeah, that's crispy. Anyone?